so much of communication is like just not in the words, but it's in the tone of the voice, as well as in person, the body language, things like that.
I get so many emails and it's such a weight on my shoulders of having to deal with them. And I get so few phone calls. It's actually wild. All my calls are Zoom calls or Google Meet or whatever. When my phone rings, it's like, hello.
With some certain words that a human might pick up on, like, hey, this person might be starting to get frustrated. I need to, maybe jump on a phone call here and let's get this thing resolved. That's the kind of stuff that, we as humans need to be able to do, because if we're not, then we might as well just be replaced with automation.
Welcome to Price, Sell, Paint, the go-to podcast for painting contractors and sales professionals in the painting industry. Hosted by industry experts Jon Bryant and Michael Murray. This podcast is proudly powered by PaintScout, your partner in painting success.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Price, Sell, Paint podcast. My name is Michael Murray. I'm excited to be joined by Jon Bryant. Jon, how are you today?
Fantastic, Michael. I like that we always say welcome back to, people that are probably in their cars are they just listen to this thing on one after another. So they're welcome back. I've been here for hours.
Well, I think we release episodes every 2 weeks. So I'm assuming, we got some. True. I think we have some regular listeners at this point we've heard. Mm-hmm. So for those people, we're welcoming them back. For other people, this might be their first time. They have no idea who the hell we are. And they're in for a special treat, because today we have a really important topic. I think it's really becoming more and more top of mind with some of the tools and technology. It just really comes down to communication and when should we use the right communication tools, text messaging, email, phone calls? Should we automate communication and things like that? I know this came up because of something recently in your business. I think you have a personal, maybe friction point recently that this came up.
I've experienced this so many times, and it comes from it's hard to know how different people interpret communication. And so setting standards within the business of how we deal with certain situations and what method of communication we should use. So in this situation, we had a staff member dealing with a customer, and the customer messaged in through the PaintScout chat being like, hey, looking to add some more work. And we're at the end of exterior season. And keep in mind, I'm not in the business. So I just see the messages come through because I'm addicted to the activity and messaging, which is, again, kind of a weird inception moment.
You're like Big Brother, just kind of watching over everything.
A little bit, yeah. But I'm addicted. I should not even be in there, but I'm addicted to it. So I'm looking at this, and the customer says hey, I want to add this work. And the person's response was, yeah, sorry, we'll deal with that next year. And the person messaged back again and said no, I don't think you understand it. We got to deal with this year because we're trying to do these things. And the person messaged back, yeah, that's great, but we don't have time this year. We'll talk next year. And so I'm kind of seeing this go on, and I'm like, this is not going to end well. I have enough experience at this point to know that this is not, no one can, we're going to get into this, but no one can sense tone when you're sending these kind of messages, right? They're reading, everyone reads it with the worst tone possible, texts, emails, messaging through the app. Yeah. And so this person, inevitably, I was this isn't going to end well. And a couple minutes later, this person messages in, and it's I'm so annoyed by this. You don't understand. You're totally blowing me off. I want to talk to your manager immediately. And this is making a mountain out of an anthill. It's the smallest thing that could have been just totally avoided with a really quick change in the method of communication. Mm. And so seeing that, and then I also have someone that I work really closely with who I was asking questions about a project we were working on, and I said I need that answer by the end of today. And they said, yeah, I've emailed them. I said, yeah, well, I need it today. Well, if they don't get back to me, at least I have it in writing. I said, no, have you called them? And they were like, no, then I won't have it in writing. I was like, that's not the point. We just need the answer. And so hiding, sometimes using these methods to hide or not getting the method right, because just it might not be on purpose, but if you get it wrong, it sometimes adds to friction and complicates a relationship that could be quite easy. And so I thought it'd be worth talking about today because this is just two recent events. Mm-hmm. This has happened time and time again in business, in my personal life. I don't know if you've had these kind of things happen, 100%. Michael, but it's we can quickly deal with problems by using the right method, and we can quickly make a massive problem out of a small problem with the wrong method. So anyways, that's my story.
Yeah, for sure. And well, I think too, though, and you're 100%. And yes, I have so many stories where similarly, right, where the nuance is lost in some of these like quick, impersonal type of messaging communication styles and things like that. So many times where that can happen. But so it's like the one way you could solve that is just like, well, we'll just do all communication in person. We'll just go back, I don't know, whatever, like the 1800s or the early 1900s, and we're just going to do everything in person. We're just going to get rid of all of this stuff. But that's not possible, or that's not very practical either. Right? We need things to move quick. We want to be able to service a lot of customers. And that's, where some of these technologies can be awesome tools if used correctly. So we're not here to say, we shouldn't text message customers, or we shouldn't email customers, or we shouldn't automate, or, not, or whatever. It's just understanding like when is the right time to use the right tool, whether it's again a phone call. That's these things that we walk around with in our pockets can be used as phones. So it's kind of cool how that works. And but there's times to text message, there's times to email, and I think as a sales professional in our industry, we're really comes down to is how well do you communicate. It's communicating maybe before appointments, obviously during appointments, after appointments. But even just in, like customer service moments, customers might be upset with something that's happened at a job site. And a lot of times the sales rep's the first one they're going to reach out to because that's who they originally had that trusting relationship with. And so I think sales reps are often very much at like the front lines of these communication like strategies that we're going to be talking about today.
For sure. Yeah. And I think there's a few things you mentioned, which is, the automation piece, which we want to talk about. And is it better in person or better texted, better emailed? I mean, there's, I think, the right time for different things, but ultimately, buyers' expectations are changing too. And the need for personalization is changing. And I think that, getting ahead of that and understanding how to create a modern communication experience for customers can be really helpful. I think tools like, you look at, Amazon and how you place an order, then you get a message, and there's a notification that it's coming, and then it shows up and says, "Hey, it showed up." I mean, that's really helpful for that type of experience. And
Sure.
Texting is great; like that's really helpful. It's coming to my house; it's awesome. But when there's an issue, I don't want to be texting specifically with a bot. I mean, like I have a problem. So yeah, so tone, timing, medium, it all affects how customers perceive you, and I think we want to get into that today.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting you bring up Amazon, right? That's a it's interesting over like the last 25 years, they've changed completely how we think about shopping. And, I'm certainly old enough to remember when all Amazon did was sell books online. And as they started to move into different like customer segments and product lines and things like that, most of the established core, resisted it and said it's never going to happen. Like you can't, for example, you can't buy shoes on a website. Like you have to be able to go into a store and try them on. You can't buy clothes without going to a store and trying them on. And so many of these things that the companies that were in like these popular spots, if you will, big companies doing big revenue, just completely got either taken off the map or at least like significant competition from Amazon because they came in and were able to see like which part of that in-person experience was so critical in terms of communication and maybe making it easy to return things if you didn't like it, and they were able to kind of solve for some of the communication issues that a lot of the established guards said you're never going to be able to do this over the internet. And so I think our industry is maybe somewhat at the beginning of that type of a transformation over how things are done digitally and with communication and all these different tools and stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, should we dig into a couple of these communication methods, Michael?
100%. Yeah. So I think maybe the first one. Well, why don't you explain, John? Like when like just give us like a broad outline. Like how do we think about when's the best time to call? When's the best time to text, email, maybe even in person? Like how should we just kind of like broad strokes think about that, and then let's maybe dive into some nuance in each one.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I've come to realize these mediums, how they work best is when they're used in terms of relationship. And so I think email is a great method when it doesn't require much of an intense relationship. Like you can send it off, send a quote by email, you send out mass emails, you communicate that way. And And it's been like, it's a low barrier to personalization, I think. And then you kind of ramp it up with texts, on a phone call, and then in person. It's kind of the way I've always seen building relationships.
Yep.
Is it's worked that way. And so when I need to go to, like, say we have an issue, I sometimes go all the way to the top of that, because it's about relationship, it's about being understood and heard, and that in-person element is just so important. And working our way back, we'll go through each of the mediums, but I feel like they have like an urgency and importance as you go up the scale. So again, that's text message in my mind. Like, happy to hear your thoughts too, but it's email, then text, voice call, in person, and then I don't know, family, being in the will probably is the next one. But that's So I mean, would you disagree with that, or how do you feel about that list?
I don't know where are we putting pager? Is pager still on the
pager? No? Yeah, fax machine.
Yeah, fax machine's a good one. But anyways, yeah, no, I agree 100%. Yeah, I think that's the right way of thinking about it. I think it is, how important is the conversation? How, I don't know, like, critical the details are, that we don't let things get lost in like the tone and translation. The more critical it is, the more likely we need to be in person or over the phone. And a lot of, like, I don't know, less emotional conversations can definitely happen with an email or a text message.
Yeah,
I think that's a good outline.
One of the rules I have for myself is with text, like, I have what I call 3 text limit. So I'm like, if we have to send 3 texts back and forth to each other, I'm just going to call you. So we've escalated it far enough. Like, for me, it's just like, that's got to be so bullet point in terms of method. Like, I mean, I'm trying to avoid carpal tunnel at the end of the day, but I also feel like a 2-minute phone call can avoid 47 text messages. So
are you old enough? Are you old enough to remember having sent text messages before smartphones?
I think it was like my first phone. Yeah.
Okay, because I was so I'm old enough to have been running. I was running a painting business at that point when I was in school, and I remember if I had to send a text that was more than 3 words, I was just calling the person,
right?
Because you used to have to would click. What I think it was like the number 2 was like A, B, and C, and so if you wanted to C, you had to click it 3 times, and then you go to the next one. It was awful.
That's right.
Anyways, all right. I just had to get that out there. I like reminding myself how old I am. Somebody listening is going to relate to that.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Anyway, so let's talk about these, kind of each a little bit in maybe a little bit more detail here. So
let's start with you. Where do you want to start? Email. Let's start with email. Okay. How about that? Like, it's, I think, I mean, email, just as like a baseline, I think it's good for documentation. Like I was mentioning earlier, like, let's get it in writing. It is, I mean, clarity, professionalism is great. I think we in our systems have sent estimates by email. We've formal follow up, summarizing of a meeting or call. Like, those are good, but again, like, I think there's an issue of tone sometimes, especially when it gets anything more critical than like specific data, or like we're already good. We already have a good relationship.
Yep.
I think people generally in these types of communication like lead towards a negative tone. So I'm always a little bit, leery of that. But yeah, I mean,
I think email is like not very personalized, and I think like that's a big part of it. I think a lot of emails I get are like marketing messages, maybe some sales related stuff like you just talked about, right? We obviously use it to send out our proposals and document those types of conversations. I think email is like really good when I might need to go back and reference it. I kind of want to like almost having it's like a digital like file box of conversations, but it's not where I want to be having any sort of like emotional conversations, anything that might involve like a back and forth. Again, other than like maybe a quick, simple answer to something, I would certainly, I don't think trust is really built over email. It can certainly be lost over email, but I don't think trust is built over email. So yeah, I think email plays a really important part, but I think if we're doing like follow-ups as a sales rep using email, I think that's probably a problem. That's one of the places I would better lean away from. I think if you're doing follow-ups over email, it's probably like late, right? We've been following up, we're not getting an answer, and it's more of a like, hey, we have like a breakup email. I think a lot of companies use something similar, where it's just like, hey, we haven't heard from you in a while. We've been trying to get in touch with you about this painting project, but I don't hear from you in the next 2 days. We're going to assume you're not interested. We're going to go ahead and close this out. We would have to requote it. Something like that is pretty formal. we're trying to document the fact that this conversation has taken place, maybe hoping to get a response from them that we could then take. And if somebody responded like, hey, sorry, I haven't gotten in touch with you, I would then take that and turn it back, and then I would call them, right?
Exactly.
And I would want to then take that into a phone call to try to like move that along the sales process there. But
and also it's things that like leave it on their time as well. Like I think that message resonates well because like you've had a hard time connecting with them, and maybe they've had stuff happening. But if you start texting, you start calling a lot, it starts to really piss people off.
Yeah.
And so an email is a nice thing to just leave as a when you're ready to check this out.
Yeah, I think that's important, right? We, that's like thinking about that from like asynchronous versus synchronous conversation. Asynchronous, where we don't have to both be, communicating at the exact same time. Like get to this when you can, versus like a phone call. Like phone calls only work, very synchronous, right? If I can't just call you, if you don't answer it, there's no communication. But again, I think that is a really good point of like, this can be something like get to this when you can type of a idea. Yeah. Even to the example that you started today's conversation with of like, I need an answer today. Email is probably not the best way to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So
I said I hate email.
Do you think there's a world where like, trades businesses operate without email?
It's hard to imagine. I mean, it's just such a like part of our world. For me as like a business owner, I mean, and it's even worse now with all this like AI generated email crap that I get every single day, but it's just like stuff gets lost, and I'm just like bad at, like, I don't want to spend my day in my inbox. I hate it. It's not a good productive place for me to be, I think for most people to be. And so, but then what happens is I do get some important stuff through an email, and then it gets lost. And I'm always just like, if you would have just given me a call, it's like I could have answered that question in 2 minutes. But you're sitting there waiting, and I hate that, right? I don't want to be the bottleneck on something. So it's like email's not a really good spot. You need a quick answer, especially for me.
No. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm very much the same. Where I was explaining this to someone the other day, where I'm like, I get so many emails, and it's such a weight on my shoulders of like having to deal with them, and I get so few phone calls. Like it's actually wild. Like all my calls are Zoom calls or Google Meet or whatever. When my phone rings, it's like, hello.
Like, right. What's that?
Yellow, what's up? I want to talk to you. And I think
you're just talking to the spam callers just to have somebody to talk to.
Exactly. Yes, I will send money to Nigeria. So I mean, like, yeah, email. Like people get bombarded. There's so much of it, and I think that as sales reps, especially in what we do, like, which is quite. I mean, we're building relationships, but if we're honest, it's transactional too, and we're looking for pretty quick answers. I say transactional not in like we don't care about the customer, but these things happen quickly. In fact, the faster they happen, often the better it is for everybody. Like if you can go, like we've talked about this before in the podcast, like getting an answer on site when you're with the customer is best case scenario. Then it's like a follow-up call, or maybe the best case is you email and they immediately accept, which is also like can be concerning. It's best if you like run like just quick call the next day. Hey, yeah. Or they call you. Like call. I love closing by a call because now I'm like, we have a relationship. This wasn't just like we've built the trust. We've done what we need to do. And email gets in the way sometimes. It can be
100%. Yeah.
When you hide behind. So yeah, I think that's probably a great way to think about it is like they build confidence, but they don't really build connection. And as a contractor, we're trying to build connection and trust. Ultimately, I think we've talked about this too before, where people are looking to not get screwed, not get taken advantage of. And part of that's getting to know you and trusting you. So email is not going to beat you over the competition, I'd say.
I do think email has a place in our like sales follow-up for like sharing of information.
Yeah.
So I mentioned, I think on maybe one of the more recent podcasts that we use Google Gemini to like create some like image renderings of like what a project could look like. And I think that can be what I've taught our sales reps is like, that can be like a really cool thing. If you didn't have a chance to do that with the homeowner live at the appointment, which is also, an awesome way to do it, but it can be a great like touch point maybe the next day. And just like, hey, I was thinking about you, excited about your project. I actually put together a like quick rendering to show you what that would look like. to me, that's best sent through an email because, again, somebody can reference it. It's not going to get lost in their text messages. I think it's generally, probably like something they might have a chance to like open and digest on their own schedule. Where text messaging is to me, it's like very just like, it's like in the moment type of a thing. Like I'm going to quickly respond or not. And it's just kind of like out of sight, out of mind. Pretty quick.
Yeah. The other thing you like just dawned on me is that when you send a text, it's going to be read on a phone, but an email can be opened on computer. I know email open rates are typically like moving towards phones as well, but you just get a different profile or something like that, right? Like it could open bigger, or they're going to be able to have that option to open it bigger. Because if you send it by text, like there are ways obviously to get the text on your computer, but you can go back to your computer and see that image in a larger way, in a more impactful way. So sometimes thinking about the way that the customer gets it, or the prospect, or how that person is going to get that information is important.
All right. So talking about text, I think is awesome, especially for like quick messaging, quick confirmations. It's like we all know we're supposed to be on time for an appointment, but maybe you're running 5 minutes behind. Like, don't send that in an email. You probably don't even need to call the person. Maybe, but a quick text can go a long way here. Like, hey, on my way, just going to be there about 5 minutes late, something like that. Again, like in the moment, quick messaging, things like that certainly come to mind.
Yeah, I think where I've seen it used really well is obviously in our world, like being conscientious of a customer's time is really important, and setting up a system where you tell the customer how far you are out, especially for an appointment, can mean a lot for that relationship. It just says you're thinking about it and you're present and aware. And so, like I've seen reps use that really, really well, where every appointment, 15, 20 minutes out, just letting the person know I'm on my way. Here's who I am.
Love it.
And what it does is it sets the tone that they care and allows them to have brief check-ins with them later. And when I say later, it's not just after the appointment, it's also like down the road.
Sure.
So sometimes you have to be able to have sent a text in order to send a future text. So like being able to do like a small unexpected touch later, like, hey, how did the job end up? Or how did the birthday celebration go? Something you've connected with, I think, is oftentimes just really nice by text. It's almost like a little card alternative. So yeah. Have you seen it, like elements of your process that have worked well, Michael?
Yeah. I mean, again, I think like we have a lot, and we'll talk about automating stuff later, but like we have a lot of automated texts that are really, I think, important for like, what we just talked about, like schedule reminders and different things like that. Yeah, I think texting is becoming like more and more a part of what we do. I know on like, this isn't relevant necessarily for all the sales reps listening, but on like the hiring side, I mean, when we're trying to hire like especially younger people, it's almost like the main way to communicate now. And, so it's changing. I think there are more and more like customers and homeowners that actually just prefer to do things via text message, even maybe compared to like a phone call or something, because of the asynchronous nature of text message that they can respond a little bit slower. Yeah, so it's interesting. I think I would say text messaging is the one that is like by far on the upswing. I think email is probably a little bit on the downswing, but it's still like relatively flat. And I would say phone calls probably the one that's like the most like declining in prevalence.
Yeah,
that
I mean, I'm excited to talk about phone calls too. I think like this reminds me a lot of when people move to digital marketing from say direct mail. And so like in your point about the younger generation texting, it's like, do we really want to succumb to that? Where it's like, that's what they do, so that's what we do. And I sometimes wonder in a relationship with the customer, like they want to text, but ultimately other businesses are like, fine, I'll do what the customer wants. When really like a phone call is going to make the difference. Even though people kind of fight it, it's like, that's really still how we operate as humans.
Yeah.
Like direct communication, verbal communication. And so like, how much of it do we take as like, this is what we should do? And how much do we take of it as this is an opportunity to do better?
Yeah, I think, one of the things I see us doing a lot more of is like scheduling appointments over text. versus, obviously still a lot of people schedule an appointment, or they'll schedule their own appointments on our website. But I think, again, I feel like there's a increasing use of, messaging tools, whether it's text message or on the website type messaging, where, we're using it for scheduling, things like that. So yeah, I think from our sales reps though, I see text messaging as, just like a really helpful way for them to have like small little touch points that you kind of referenced before with clients and relationships and people like that, to keep in touch, just like we probably use in our personal life. It shouldn't be a replacement for like in-person get-togethers, or, maybe a longer phone call asking somebody how they're doing. But, sending, in our personal life, we probably text each other like funny pictures, or, maybe news articles or whatever, just to tell somebody that we're kind of thinking about them. And I feel, probably don't want to send funny pictures to our customers, but, there are like places where we can use that to, I think it can be a tool that is used to like help to, kind of continue a relationship. I don't necessarily think it's a great tool to like build an initial relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's so important to at least have the discussion as a team of like what is okay to send by text, because like again, like the tone is interesting. I think like emoji use is also funny. Like we have someone on our team who responds to everything by emoji, and it's like hey guys, we're having lunch Tuesday, and they send like an emoji of like a fish jumping over the moon, and you're like, so you're in? And then they send like another emoji of like a pumpkin, and then you're like, okay, are you in? Like, no, sorry, can't make it. It's like, what is going on? And so like I just we've had to discuss this issue of like, guys, emojis don't represent communication. And I worry that like the point of like what we can do with our friends, we should do with our customers is like, yes, but professionalism matters. So like,
for sure,
what do you do? And you got to judge, you got to read the room, right? Like, and to be honest, I'm not great with emojis. Like sometimes I send them and I'm like, what did I actually just say? like, what? Yeah. How's this person going to interpret it? So like, again, like I think having that chat as a team, thinking about like what is okay. If your company is about emojis, great, but let's rein it in as to maybe which ones we send. Just because you think an eggplant is a vegetable, maybe someone else doesn't. So,
that one I know. That one
you got that one. Okay.
I'll use that one.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, this is why we hire younger people, John, to help us understand what these things.
What terrible things we've said to people.
Yeah, right. All the different ways that completely innocuous emojis now have different meanings.
Yeah. So it's just like
before we get in trouble.
Totally. I mean, it's that line of like showing you care versus like going over to being too casual, which is important. And I think in the automation discussion, it's really important too.
Yeah. I think it's also important though too, because we want to have these like friendly relationships with our customers, and that's good. But if we're not careful, when we have to have a difficult conversation, whether it's to ask for the sale or to maybe there's some kind of conflict, right? They need to pay us and they haven't, or they're frustrated because the crew didn't do something, or whatever it might be. If we haven't also established that like professional part of the relationship, and it's only just been over here in this like friend zone, it can be a problem. And we can often like misstep at that point, not maybe understanding the seriousness of the conversation and the level of professionalism that needs to be brought to that, to make sure that everybody has the right like tone and context, and things aren't being lost.
Do you think would you ever send a price by text or ask for the job by text? Like,
I think so. Definitely not initially.
Yeah,
I have had some like even pricing conversations with people via text. It wasn't the first conversation we had about it, but so I presented it. They got back to me, said something along the lines of they got a better price and they were going to go with somebody else. And so then I responded with a text message, something along the lines of like, oh, okay, well, completely understand. Can you, help me understand like what price point were they at? And we just like I would handle any other objection. And we did that through a text message because that's how they started it. And I would also say though that at any point, if I would have felt like their messaging was like they were getting frustrated, they didn't want to respond, if their messaging was getting like short, one-word answers or something like that, I would have just picked up the phone and called them.
Yeah.
But I could tell from the tone that I was reading from what they were saying and like the length of their messages and things like that, that it was probably better. It also like mattered. Again, I had an in-person relationship. I had talked to them over the phone. They had young kids. Like I can understand that text message might be better than a phone call because of their like situation, right? I can imagine having had young kids that, are now getting older on me, that like there's times where it's just like kids are crying in the background. Like I just can't answer a phone right now, but I could easily text with you.
Yeah.
But I would say, less than 1% of the time, am I going to think that that's like the right way to do it?
Yeah.
It's also, it's just so easy to ignore, right? And I don't get to read their emotion,
No.
either in their voice or maybe more in person. I want to see how they respond when we have a conversation about pricing. And like, I also don't want them to be able to hide, right? It's so easy for somebody to just like end conversation and never pick up your phone call again, because why do they need to? They already know what the price is.
Exactly. I think providing a price, like you said, not first conversation, but maybe as an additional work order or like an add-on, like that happens a lot because you have the relationship already, right? You've gone to the in-person, the phone call, and now text is okay. So yeah, I love. I had a sales rep who would text estimates at 11 p.m. at one time. It was like years and years and years ago, and and his point was that like it's just great to get when you're in your bed and you can just read it in bed.
Yeah, it's not.
It's like, dude, this is you're doing too much thinking for the customer and putting yourself in their shoes. So like thinking about the time of text also really matters. Like, do you keep it during business hours, or would you care if someone sent something after?
So I think in our industry, like business hours are usually like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Something like that.
Yeah.
7 to 7. And it just depends, right? Like if I'm actively painting at your house, like I could probably shoot you a message 7:30 that like, hey, crew's on their way or something like that, whatever. But if it's like a sales follow-up, I'm say not before 9 a.m. Definitely not after like 7, maybe 8 p.m.
Yeah, totally. This same rep, I once asked him like how he was treating his schedule. He said, well, nobody really works on Mondays. Like they're kind of just getting in and like getting going. And so like, I don't want to follow up on Mondays. And like before 10 a.m., like everyone's just kind of like getting their stuff together, like getting their coffee. So I don't want to call them before that. And generally people are shutting it down like around 3 p.m. So I don't really call after that. And I was like, so
when does this guy actually work?
Exactly. It was wild. It was like, so you're telling me your schedule is like 15 hours a week? Like
you're fired.
and then you said the estimate at 11 p.m. because they're in bed and would like to, it was like, this is too much. It obviously didn't work, but it was very, very interesting, which is why like I think talking about this is so important, because we make these assumptions that like we operate the way we operate, and that's okay. And other people are like beating to their own drum and sending the 11 p.m. estimate and like never following up by phone call. Like these are they're critical. So if
you've got to send something at 11, put that in an email.
Exactly, that's the right time. Email's great at 11. You're not cozying up in your bed waiting for an estimate to come in.
Yeah, you can use that schedule email feature too and just have it hit their inbox, because I'm not responding to your email late at night.
No, and it's not like my nighttime reading is getting my estimate.
Your nighttime reading, it sounds like it's reading over all the message conversations going on in the company.
It's a problem. I need something better to read.
All right. So when do we use the phone? This weird thing, actually talking to people, no emojis involved. When does that come into play here?
I want to use the phone as much as possible. And that's just my style.
But you're old.
I'm a millennial. I know I'm old. But this is the thing, is that I think that like our culture has moved away from real genuine connection. Like each one of these things moves us further and further away from actually connecting with other human beings. And so like I'm someone that like feels like relationships is important, and I'm built that way. So maybe I'm weird, but I think like I'm always encouraging everybody in sales that I meet that like the phone is this long lost secret that is like it's this relic, it's this like archaeological find that you're going to find on your phone in the phone feature that actually is like the secret to sales, right? Like, I remember talking to someone in the last couple of years about, their marketing strategy, and it was all about like mass email and mass text. This was going to sell it. And I remember like early on in my career talking with someone in the insurance industry being like they had evaluated that as a marketing option. Like people don't buy on transaction that much. They buy on trust, and they buy on relationships. And that really stuck with me, is that like phone is this thing to use in sales all the time. Like move it to the phone as fast as possible for the reason that you mentioned earlier, which is that you can get direct feedback. You can feel the tone. You can understand if someone's really actually upset or they're just genuinely asking about something. And so yeah, like that 3 text limit, I move it to phone. If I get an email that I feel like is, more than just a response or some emotion, I move it to phone. Like maybe I'm weird that way, but I think it's super important. Devil's advocate, Michael, am I wrong here? Because you do more automation, I think, than most.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think there's my goal, honestly, is to automate as much of the email and text message so that frees our sales reps up and our other people on our team up to do more phone calls and more in-person real conversations. That's, I think, what is like the best use case, not to replace the human element, but actually to allow for more of it. And yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think things that involve trust and have to involve, voice, right? Where we can hear each other and understand each other and connect. And then, we're going to get into that in person, but so much of communication is like just not in the words, but it's in the tone of the voice, as well as in person, the body language, things like that. But again, it really comes back to is like, do we believe that it takes trust for a prospect, homeowner, commercial property owner, whatever, to say yes to our bid? If it takes trust, then it takes a relationship, then it takes these methods of communication in person and phone calls. And I would say if you feel like it doesn't, and you're right, the scary part is then companies don't need sales reps.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. I mean, Zen, what was the Paint Zen? I think they like famously, this is their business model. And I know they were purchased by a like industrial painting company or something. I mean, for a lot of ways, I think we could say at this point that it didn't work, or at least it was ahead of its time, or whatever the right wording is. But their whole model was based on like, you don't need an in-person quote. You can just come on our website. We'll tell you how much it costs to paint something, and then you can click here to buy it. And I think I think there's some really cool aspects of that. As a person who likes to automate and things like that, I'm like, man, I love some of this stuff. I've even tried to like build some things like that, and then what I quickly realized is like, oh, wait a minute, we're losing out on the most important part here, which is that human-to-human connection and that trust.
Yeah, one thing I found interesting with that example, with the paint set example, is that I watched that early on just to see what was kind of happening, and it started with like being able to do full bids on there. And it quickly moved to this is too big, a sales rep will call you.
Interesting.
And so it seemed as though like if you needed a room painted in a downtown apartment, that was a great method. Like $500 to $1,000, I think people are willing to spend, risking getting someone to come to your house you've never met to come and actually do the work. But after that, bigger decisions require an in-person handhold. And I think we're in that territory as painting contractors that these things, like if you're sending, automated bids or you're potentially doing virtual estimates, your competitor that goes in person is building a different relationship. And oftentimes when it's a bigger dollar value, that relationship matters more. And so I think that's an interesting observation I saw, was that, in this process of estimating smaller ticket items, people are willing to do. Larger ticket items are not.
Yep.
So something to be taken away from that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, again, I think it's in general. I would also add too, though, like you mentioned before, it's like, but like coming into your home, even a
Mm,
small project for a lot of people, that is still a big, amount of trust that's
mhm,
required. And so I think we have to be, again, just like very aware of like buyers and the decision making process that they're going through. I would also too, though, it's just like if it's not, and if it's just a like transaction and it doesn't really matter, I don't need to build trust. We're going to commoditize ourselves, and we're going to be
mhm,
racing to the bottom because
mhm.
now what are we going to judge, and what are we asking a prospect to judge us on? Just our price? What our paint? We can all get the same paint, and so really, what it does come back to, I think, is like that trust. Like a homeowner is willing to pay more to have us do the work compared to maybe somebody else because they trust that we're going to get it done with less headache, less friction on their part.
And if there is friction, the person you're dealing with is approachable
Hmm.
and can help you figure that friction out, which I think is a critical thing we forget at the point of sale, that people are evaluating for good dance partners essentially, because stuff goes wrong. Like, I think we can all admit that. But when it does, how does the person that I'm talking to here going to relate to conflict? And
Yeah.
I think you judge that better in person. So my vote is phone all the time. I mean, will we see changes in that as it goes forward? Probably. I think people can get frustrated if there's not that option for
Mm.
in person. If you keep
Hmm.
moving it away from that, it's like, well, I buy from the person, not the system. So,
I would just say that, like, I agree with what you said before. Is I think there's a lot of opportunity for sales reps to win more jobs by making more phone calls. I think even what I see sometimes on our team is like, well, I called, I left a message, and then I sent an email. I'm sure they'll get back to me when then they're ready.
mhm,
And I always remind people, it's like, I won't. Like, if I was your customer and you leave me a voicemail as a sales rep, or I'm your prospect, I guess, and you leave me a voicemail, I'm 95% of the time not going to call you back.
mhm,
Not because I'm trying to be rude. It's not because I don't even want to. I probably want to do the job. I want this problem to go away. I need this thing done at my house. Like, I need this. And I listen to your voicemail, and then I get distracted by one of a million things that are going on with kids and family and sports and business and whatever. And it's completely out of sight, out of mind. And I can't even remember the fact that you called. Or I finally do get a chance to listen to it, and it's like 8:30 at night, and I don't want to call you back, and then the next morning it's gone. And it's like, I keep reminding our team that it's our job as the sales professionals is to like take that project away from the customer. It's not their job to buy it. It's our job to like make buying it easy. And sometimes that means we've got to call them 4, 5, 6, 10 times in a week, 2, 3 week span to like catch them at the right moment. And we can't take it personally when they don't answer the phone or they don't get back to us or things like that. It's just, that's not their job. It's our job. That is
mhm.
our job, is to do that follow up. And yeah, anyway, so that's something we are constantly talking about, is using the phone as like as your number one communication method, not as like a last ditch fallback, tried it once kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's a dangerous game to play as a sales professional, to say that the customer's job is to buy from you. And it comes up in numerous different ways. They didn't get back to me. They didn't do what they said they would do. It's like, do everything you can to make them do no work. Like,
Yeah.
they didn't call you to do work
Hmm.
for you. They're trying to get you to work for them. And so I think it's just an important thing to continually remind ourselves that, like, it's not personal. It's timing. It's a lot of different things. And a lot of people are busy,
Yep.
especially, if you're trying to get someone to paint your home or property for you, you don't have the time to do it yourself. So you're probably doing something else. So I think the one thing to avoid, though, and we kind of talk about this from a really holistic point of view, but from a customer's point of view, or so holistic, genuine point of view is a better way to phrase it. The customer's point of view, they're trying to also avoid a couple things. So as it gets more personal with phone calls, I think they're trying to avoid like conflict. A lot of times they don't want to have to say no to your face. So it's up to us to like make that really easy to say no. They're also like trying to avoid the pushy person. I think that's why you'll see a lot of customers move down communication chains if they feel that you're
Mm.
being pushy. So it's almost a way to identify how the customer's feeling, right? Like they're not taking your call after the follow-up, so maybe we can self-reflect a little bit and think, did we give them a good feeling that we weren't going to be pushy, that we were going to be okay with the answer no, that like we're genuinely there to help them buy. Because like I love kind of watching that interaction sometimes to help sales reps to be like, oh, this is maybe the issue you're having, is that you've got these people that are just emailing you back. The connection you're making is probably not the best. So
yeah, exactly. It starts with that in-person appointment, which I think we're both a big fan of. I mean, we've done a lot of virtual estimates in our company and realized that while you can sell work that way for sure, you are leaving something on the table. You're not going to sell at the same rate, same job sizes, and things like that because of the connections and relationship building that takes. And I think if we do a really good job in that in-person appointment and we build that great relationship and we have that like bond and that trust built, then you might need the phone call stuff maybe a little bit less, but I think it's still always going to be like the most important place for it. And I actually would say that like in-person following up is a tool that most sales reps do not utilize enough. It's something that I used to use more so, I would say more than most of our sales reps do, where I would just, whatever, it's been like a week or something since I'd given somebody an appointment. Maybe I called them, they haven't responded. And it's just hey, I'm in the neighborhood, just stopping by, wanted to see how things were going. Hoping we can get you guys on our painting schedule. What can I do to make that happen? Type of a conversation. Again, with the idea that like, if you called and you scheduled an appointment and you spent 45 minutes to an hour with me and we did all these things, like you have a problem. You have something you are trying to solve. And until you tell me, hey, we found another solution that we're really happy with, I'm going to assume that you need me to solve your problem, and I'm going to make that really easy.
I've never done an in-person follow-up, probably because I'm too good at hiding behind the phone. I don't know why. I don't know why I've done that. But
yeah, I mean, I would say there's sales reps at our company that have probably never done it either.
Yeah.
I think the last handful of years, as I was still doing a few quotes, like I wasn't doing it just because I was too busy. But when I was like earlier on and like my main responsibility was just go sell jobs, and we didn't have maybe quite as much like lead flow and otherwise, that works. Like you will sell jobs.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something that people can put into place, over the winter or times when they're maybe a little bit slower. It can definitely boost some of those win rates.
I think maybe what's changed is that like the ability to use PaintScout and get the price on site allows us to get a bit more insight on that. I'd say on the bigger jobs, maybe, if you have a larger job and relationship with say, let's go over a commercial job over 50 grand. I mean, everyone's going to be different here, actually. I shouldn't reference price, but being able to present that on in person is going to give you probably more insight into whether you have a chance.
Yeah.
And so,
I think having like that second visit is kind of what I hear you saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, second in-person visit. And because those are the jobs where like chatting with the decision maker makes all the difference, or really getting that feedback, because it can go into a void sometimes, I think, on the commercial side.
I think I would go as far as to say that like if the goal is to sell as much work as you can, you should never send a quote that you haven't gone over in person.
Totally. Which is the power of like having a system like PaintScout to have that price while you're there, so you can have that discussion.
Yep.
So
yeah, I was just gonna say, if for some reason you weren't able to put it all together in PaintScout, like schedule that second appointment, put it together, go back and present it. I think too often we're just like, okay, thanks, this has been wonderful, I'm going to send you an email with the quote, and it's like, don't avoid that. Go over it first.
Yeah, I mean, a phone call can work for that too. I think, like giving them a shout, let them know the price, getting a sense of it, and sending it. So for time, let's talk about automation, Michael. Because you have a lot of thoughts on this.
For sure. I mean, again, I mentioned it. We've been sprinkling this in as we went. I think automation has to play a role here. I think we are exploring like AI agents and like phone agents, where we have AI, to call it robot, I guess. An AI person. I don't know what else to call it. It's like replacing somebody answering the phone, replacing the like live messaging on our website, different things like that. Again, I think it matters is like the context. What are we asking for? if it's to schedule an appointment, probably could work. I think it could work. I don't know that I think the technology exists. It's just a matter of like getting it set up in a like seamless way for how we do business and things like that. But there's not a lot of like trust building here, right? A lot of our estimates get scheduled by the customer just through a web form because they don't need to necessarily build trust to get a sales appointment. But then from that point forward, I think they do need to build that trust to like spend money with us and invite our team of painters into their home. Again, we use automation for like appointment reminders, confirmations, and then even just like some really soft touch points after an estimate where they'll get like just every couple weeks we'll just keep in touch if their project is still marked as open. It's not meant to like replace the sales rep. It's not necessarily asking for the sale. That's the sales rep's job. But it's just going to be like top of mind. Like, hey, here's some colors that are really popular, maybe to help you out with picking out colors for your painting project as you're making that decision. Like that type of messaging, as opposed to like, hey, are you ready to buy? Which is really more what the sales rep should be doing.
Yeah, that supporting messages really resonated with me. We talked about it quite a while ago now, but like I think we get tied up in these automated messages being about buying, when really it's about supporting your core your benefits. Yeah. And that's just a very different style. I think so. One thing I wanted to ask you about. So you said AI agent for answering the phone, and that's always been something we've experimented with it, and when it goes wrong, it goes really wrong. Like the person's like, "Yeah, no, I'm never calling you again." Have you had success with this? Has it been?
We have not like implemented this, so we're still like testing it, trying to see, exploring it. So I have seen use cases of it working really well. We've probably all seen some of these like videos and stuff. Again, I think it does exist. I think it can exist. To your point, I don't think we get enough like, both of our companies are decent size. We get a good amount of lead volume. I don't think we have enough though to like risk, I don't know what, 5%, 10% of people saying like, this was awful, I'm never calling you again. We operate in like a local community. We want to, we're building like a brand in a local community, and like, reputation matters, and the way that people talk about us matters. And I think people are still getting used to this. I think like ask in a year from now, and I think we will all have interacted with these tools in good and bad ways, and we're going to start to get a little bit more comfortable with it. So anyways, we're just trying to learn about it and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, we've started using a chatbot, a PaintScout. So if you're a PaintScout user and you've had problems, you've probably interacted with our chatbot that we affectionately call Hugh. And at first we presented it to our customer service team. It was like, hey, we think this is going to make a difference. We think it's going to help customers get information faster. They were very hesitant. Like, what if it messes up? What if it says something bad? And it took us a long time to like implement the training, like way longer than we thought, to be honest. It was like, we're constantly training Hugh on how to be better. But what it has done is that we still have people involved. Like there's still people behind the scenes who are actively watching what's going on, but it's amplified their ability to work. And I think those are great spots to get automation involved, is that we may still need to have at a painting company, you might still have to have an office manager. That office manager, you might not need like a second scheduler. That's what it is. You might not need you can amplify with a smaller team to build a bigger customer service experience. And I think I believe you need to kind of step back and think like, why are we actually doing this? Like to your point, the trust and what people say about us really matters, and our local reputation. And I think when you go too far, you lose the personal touch, and you lose what people truly want, and you lose opportunity in the experience to be better than your competition. So do I think everything should be automated? No. Do I think there's room for like parts, like very crucial parts, to be automated and monitored? Yeah, I do.
The way I think about it is, our automation's making our life better? Like, right? Is it making mine, like the business, the sales rep, the customer service rep? Is it meant to like make my life easier, or is it meant to make the customer's life easier? And if it's truly, if I do everything from the mindset of, is this number one goal, this is better for the customer, and it is, then we're getting somewhere. I love that chatbot example, because you would probably say that like the best thing would be if somebody comes on the PaintScout like help chat, and within 30 seconds they get a real person who's an expert on everything PaintScout, and that person spends all the time in the world with them, walking them through their questions and concerns. And like that's how it first started, right? When it all, I don't know what it was, but it's like the first 3 customers of PaintScout, they probably interacted with you and like the development team, and you guys could solve every problem, and it was wonderful. And then 3 became 30 and became 300, and it was like, oh, we better start hiring some team here. And quickly, those people can't keep up. They don't know the answers, and now all of a sudden somebody's waiting an hour to hear back from somebody in the chat, and it's like, well, wait, is that the best like experience, or would it be better if they got maybe most of their questions answered immediately from Hugh, which is a great name, in a chatbot? And it's just like, yeah, that it might not be the best, but given the circumstances and like the kind of the trade-offs of the reality, it actually is better, because I don't know, a high percentage of people's questions can probably be answered way quicker with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were talking before the podcast, but I think it's like 85% of people's questions are being answered by Hugh, and then we follow up with our customer service team, being like, "How did that go? Was Hugh mean to you? Like, you answer all your questions."
Put him in timeout.
And I think give him a timeout, exactly. But yeah, like it solves complex things. Like I think it can handle problems that we didn't even really think it could, because it has the resources behind the scenes available and can process that better than ever before. So we've been, really kind of strangely impressed by it. I don't know, but it's not perfect, right? Like it still needs help.
I was telling you, I was impressed. I used the chat feature. I was building a quote. It was a pretty complex quote. I needed to get it out that day, and I went in. I was really frustrated because like it was just something like, I feel like I know a lot about using PaintScout. I talked to a lot of people about it. I've taught people how to use it. I'm lucky enough to help out on this podcast, whatever. And so I go on there and I'm like, I'm just upset. Like something's broken. Like, certainly not my fault. It's obviously PaintScout's fault. And so I go in and I get Hugh and I'm like, what is this? Like, I want, where's Nastasia? Where's somebody to help me here? And I put my, comment in, and I saw it was chatbot, and I like, I can message Nastasia, right? Just from having these interactions. And I was already like ripping off my email over to her just to get a more immediate response. And the thing responded, and it was like, "No, have you tried this?" And I was like, "I don't even know what that is. Wait, what is this?" And I did, and it solved my problem. And I was like, "Okay, all right, I'm on board." Delete this email. I don't need to do that. And it was like,
she's going to read it with a negative tone, which it does have.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so I was very pleasantly surprised a few weeks ago when I had interacted with Hugh. Good job.
There you go, Hugh. Well done. Hugh's out there somewhere smiling, I'm sure.
That's right.
Yes. I mean, so the risk, I think, like is the benefit is what you described, which is that it gets it right. The risk is that automation gets messages at the wrong time for the wrong reason with the wrong message. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just what we have to be concerned about.
And it's like being, can the automation like understand like the context, right? When somebody's messaging in that they're, with some certain words that a human might pick up on, like, hey, this person might be starting to get frustrated. I need to, maybe jump on a phone call here and like, let's get this thing resolved. That's the kind of stuff that, we as humans need to be able to do, because if we're not, then we might as well just be replaced with some automation.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I mean, any other thoughts on automation, Michael?
I mean, I have lots of thoughts on it, but I think in terms of today's conversation, it's probably a good place to leave it. It serves a role, but it doesn't. It certainly, I don't believe, replaces those phone calls, those in-person conversations, and even some of that personalized messaging stuff.
Yeah, it's where the magic happens, is in the personal element of what we do. And I think that the takeaway here is, use those things to the benefit of the customer, which I like what you said, and build good relationships with your prospects and customers, and do that through the methods that make sense. So, yeah, Michael, it's been great chatting with you today, man. I think hopefully
look at us in person conversation,
in person on a call,
on Zoom,
on a podcast.
Yeah,
you know exactly. I mean. You're practically sitting beside me.
It's cool technology that we can do this, though. There you go.
It is, yes. This is great. It's we take this stuff for granted, and it is it's fun. So yeah, guys, if you enjoyed this podcast, feel free to give it a like and subscribe. We'd love to keep the conversation going with you. And as always, thanks for tuning in.
Shoot us a call. You could text us. You could email us.
That's right.
Or even better, come say hi at one of these conferences. Those are the best.
That'd be great. Or send Michael a fax. He really likes faxes. So
yeah, do that.
Great, guys. Thank you very much. We will see you soon. Michael, pleasure as always.
Take care. See ya.
This podcast is proudly powered by PaintScout, your partner in painting success.